The time has finally come for us to discuss my birth story. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Tessa. Happy to have you here. A little background for anybody that might not know. I do have a pretty extensive health history, a lot of chronic illness, POTS, Ehlers-Danlos. So this is kind of like my birth story with POTS. I really wanted my labor to be fully unmedicated. I just have experienced so many different adverse effects with medicine, and I don't know, I'm not even someone that really takes Tylenol. I just avoid medicine kind of at all costs. So that's where my head was at. I did all the natural birth classes, which I really loved. I did the built to birth suite, and I just was so firm in the understanding that our bodies are built to birth, that as women we're made to do this, and I was really confident in my ability to birth. Everybody kept telling me if you can't do it unmedicated, that's okay. And in my head I was like, well, there's no can't, because this is what our bodies are meant to do. My body is gonna do it. There's no can or can't. I can choose to not do it, but there's no can't. So in the third trimester, I was going to the chiropractor 3 times a week, and I was doing a ton of stretches to really prep myself for this natural labor. And I was feeling really confident that I could do it from a physiological standpoint. I was still exercising. From 33 weeks to 37 weeks, I was having, at times, super consistent Braxton Hicks, sometimes 3 to 5 minutes apart, but they weren't painful. They were just that tightening. I could really feel it. It almost felt like a tightening in my lungs and my heart and my throat. So I think at 39 weeks, maybe it was the day before 39 weeks, I lost my mucus plug. As a first-time mom, I'm like, my mucus plug is out. This is we're having this baby tomorrow. Apparently you can lose your mucus plug weeks before you actually go into labor. Didn't know that. Now I know that. So I lose my mucus plug. My mom comes, literally, she comes immediately. We're all thinking, okay, it's time. My mom's advice was that we just need to walk. You need to walk as much as possible to get this baby out. Pretty much that day that she came, lost the mucus plug, we walked, nothing happened. So day 2 of walking, I had been wearing panty liners just because that mucus plug came out and was kind of letting stuff out. But that was kind of deceiving me because I couldn't tell if there was any actual fluid. So one of the walks we went on, I just wore underwear. And when I got home, I went to the bathroom and I looked, and there was this big of a spot of liquid. And I was like, am I leaking fluid? Did my water break a little bit? I called the doctor, told them, and they basically just said okay, you can go get a labor check. So I get the labor check, not leaking fluid. Basically they just swab you, they track your contractions. I wasn't having consistent contractions at that point. I was simply just concerned that I was leaking fluid. So not leaking fluid, they sent me home, whatever. Day 3, walk. My contractions are super consistent, super painful. It's late at night. We've walked so many times this day. I've probably walked about 7 miles over the course of this day. No exaggeration. And also, hindsight, horrible idea for someone with POTS. Do not recommend. On this walk, I'm having to stop every couple of minutes because my contractions are so bad. And as I had predicted, it was back labor, but it wasn't just back labor, it was 360 labor. We're tracking it, they're 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. At this point, we're okay, it's happening, I'm in labor. Hindsight, I wish I would have just laid down, because I think it was simply the walking that was doing it. Go to the hospital, I get there, I'm exhausted. Have a serious contraction, and I just got so dizzy. It wasn't even that I got dizzy and then had the awareness that I needed to throw up. It was just, I had the contraction. As I started coming out of the contraction, I needed to throw up. All the dinner. We're there, they have me strapped up, we're tracking the contractions, and at this point, since I laid down, now the contractions are slowing down, which is why I said I wish after walking, instead of just being so gung-ho and going to the hospital, I wish I would have just laid down and let my body rest. We do a cervical exam, guys, 1.5 centimeters. You have no idea how defeated I was to find out that I was 1.5 centimeters. One of my doctors comes in and he's talking to me and essentially says we need 2 things for labor to happen. We need consistent contractions and we need dilation. you have the consistent contractions, you don't have the dilation. And he essentially gives me the option and says like, are you comfortable going home because you're not in active labor right now? Like, are you comfortable with that? At that point, so exhausted, so over it. I just want to be home in my bed. So we go home. I get in bed. I got some water and a banana, thinking like, I don't know, like clearly I need to rehydrate and eat because if I go into actual labor, like I need to have some kind of energy. And I tell you, I could not keep a single sip down. I'm not kidding. So I get home, the contractions aren't really letting up. I'd say they're still about every like 5 to 8. And I'd say every 4th or so contraction, it's strong enough to make me throw up. And I couldn't keep any water down. I think for like the first couple hours of the night, I was trying because I was just desperate. I was like, maybe if I can like keep it down and then like within 20 minutes, like my body can absorb something. I felt like that was better than nothing, but then I just gave up because I was clearly not keeping anything down. I had a pot next to me, so every like 5-ish minutes I was having a contraction, so that was terribly uncomfortable, and it was back labor, so I'm like patting my back. Daniel's next to me, like we were both trying to sleep, but you know, like he's trying to pat my back too. I'm trying to rub it. Then I was able to like kind of sleep in between the contractions. Some of them I actually slept through, like I sleepy had the contractions. But then of course every like 4th one I would have a vasovagal reaction and I would throw up. My mother, like my sisters, everybody's like, are you sure you don't want to just go to the hospital? I'm like, no, I don't want to go to the hospital. I've already been twice. They've already sent me home twice. I'm going to my OB appointment and we're gonna see what's happening. My OB walks into the room as I'm having a contraction. I throw up, but I make it out of the contraction and then I can talk to her. And I'm like, yeah, this has been going on literally the entire night. She's like, okay, awesome. Let's check you. 3 centimeters, which in my head, I'm like, well, it's progress. And we did a little membrane sweep. Then I started bleeding. So she says, okay, now you're bleeding. Go to the hospital. And I had told her, like we walked in there and I was like, I know that I was adamant that I wanted this natural. I'm getting the epidural. And she said, I think that is a fantastic idea. She said, go to the hospital. I'm going to call them and I'm going to tell them that you want the epidural right when you get there. So the anesthesiologist comes and guys, it was outrageously painful. Like I'm screaming, I'm cursing. I don't think it's supposed to be painful, which we'll circle back to that. But like so many needles, so many, like it felt like 10,000 things were like stuck inside of me. But finally it's done. The poor nurse, her poor hands are probably broken because I'm just squeezing her so hard. I'm cursing. Instant relief. When I tell you, like they hooked me up to fluids. Guys, it was like night and day, like 180 as a human. Once I got the epidural and I wasn't in pain anymore, my body was like relaxed. I was smiling. I was talking. It's like I was transported to a different universe where like everything was okay and I was just fine. It was incredible. Literally my legs were like, couldn't feel anything, nothing. They had asked me like if I have any issues with like pain medication or anything like that, and I do. Like it lowers my blood pressure. I already have low blood pressure and epidurals can lower your blood pressure. So this was something that we had already discussed. They knew I had POTS. They knew it was something we needed to look out for. And then suddenly like the machine starts beeping and like 8 nurses rush in. So in my head, I'm like, something is wrong. 8 nurses don't just rush in for no reason. No one's really saying anything. Everybody's just like, hi. And then they tell me like, we need to shift your position. We shift my position and I know that means that the baby's heart rate probably dropped. So I asked and I don't remember if anyone told me in that exact moment how low it went because they probably didn't want to scare me. The baby's heart rate lowered to 40. They told me the baby restabilizes, is fine. All the nurses leave. And then my blood pressure starts plummeting. Now, guys, we are in the cascade of intervention that I wanted to avoid. Got the epidural. Now we need blood pressure medicine. At this point, I'm like, literally whatever we have to do to keep me and this baby safe. Get some blood pressure medicine. I'm already like 2 boluses of fluid through, feeling fine. Can't feel the contractions. It was comical. They give me Jello. Your girl is like downing some Jello. I'm chugging water. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling like $1 million, honestly. So my mom is there, my other mom comes, we're like hanging out, and my sisters wanted to like come, and I think I had already told them that they could come, because I knew I was going into labor because the doctor told me to go to the hospital. I knew I was gonna have the baby, so I told them originally like they could just stay at the house, but at this point I'm like, listen, I feel fine. Come to the hospital, let's party. It was honestly so much fun. Like, I know a lot of people don't like people at the hospital with them. Honestly, if I had been like hypnobirthing, I didn't want anyone there. But epidural, it's a party, you're chilling. Or at least I was chilling. You know, a couple hours later, the contractions are slowing. So you know what that means. More intervention. Now we're on Pitocin, guys. And the doctor gave us the choice. You know, she told us, like, the labor slowed. At this point, I would recommend Pitocin. Like, how do you feel about it? And we're like, you know what? Yeah, we expected this. This is how it works, typically. This is the sequence of events. We know the benefits and the risks of everything. Contractions pick back up again. We're rocking and rolling. And here's the thing. Before I got the epidural, they, you know, strap you up. You're still strapped and it's tracking your contractions. So the contractions that were making me throw up were at 70. I don't really know what the numbers mean. All I know is they are tracking the intensity, and once the intensity got to 70 is when I was like kind of passing out and throwing up. After the epidural and on Pitocin, then the contractions started going up to like 140. In my head, I'm like so relieved and so grateful that I could even have medical intervention, because I'm like, I truly don't know. I don't think I'd be conscious if I was throwing up and almost passing out at 70 and now my body's at a 140. Like, I truly don't think I could have handled it. Then the doctor asks me if I want to have my water broken, and I'm like, you know what? Sure, let's do it. Let's keep this thing rolling to get the labor moving, because I want to have this freaking baby. I say yes, and it was so funny because like I'm in the hospital bed. There's like a bench thing that ends up being the bed for the partner to lay in, and it's like my mom's, my sister, I think Daniel was like over there or something, but I say like, yeah, let's break my water, and it was like the peanut gallery. All 4 of them start like clapping, yelling. They're like so excited. It was like an event, like, oh my god, her water is gonna break. So yeah, they like start preparing me, and mind you, I'm laying back, like my big tummy, I have blankets, they're like moving stuff around. I can't see anything, like I can't see my leg, so I'm just laying and can't feel anything. You can't feel a thing when you first have the epidural. So I'm just chilling, everyone's next to me, and I go, guys, just out of curiosity, is it out? And I'll just die laughing. And they're like, yeah, yes, you are fully exposed right now. And I'm like, oh, I can't see. And I just thought that was hilarious, because like you literally, you can't feel air, you can't feel anything. And I was spread eagle. When the epidural first went in, I couldn't like consciously move anything. I couldn't feel anything, like literally could not feel any sensation. And then it starts to the point where I'm like, I can move my toes and I can like start moving my legs. So then they were like, oh, okay, but like, are you in pain? And I'm like, no, it's just like, is that not weird that I can like move again and feel things? And they were like, no, it's okay. We're just gonna give you a button. So like, if it does start becoming painful and you need more of the medicine that like is pumped through the epidural catheter, you can give it to yourself, but like, just let us know if you do that. And also it's like a limit, like you can't overdo it. So then the contractions actually did start getting painful again. Like not unbearable, but they were like uncomfortable and I'm able to like move my legs again. So I start like giving myself more medication because I'm like, well, I don't want to be in pain. I don't know, it was just confusing. I didn't expect that, to like be able to feel things. I think the way that they put it to me is when you first get the epidural, they gave me like a different kind of medicine too that's stronger and that wears off. And so she said like if it gets too painful, the anesthesiologist could come back in and give me more of that medicine versus just like the regular epidural medicine. Never ended up doing that. I remembered another really essential part of the story. So when her heart rate crashed and all those nurses came in, she must have actually pooped. And that's really common. So if the baby is in distress in the womb, they will poop. And that's the meconium. So when they broke my water, they were able to see that there was meconium. So now we know, like, once I start delivering her, we're gonna have to suction out her nose and her mouth, and it's something that we have to look for. They checked me and I was 7 centimeters. And then I went from 7 to 9 in like 40 minutes. Like once I hit 7, things were like moving. Once I hit 9, it was fast. I think maybe like another 20 minutes to get to 10 centimeters. I hit 10 centimeters, and it's funny because going into labor, like my birth plan was I wanted it dim. I wanted to hypnobirth. I brought my headphones. I was planning on like listening to meditations. I brought my essential oils. I didn't want a ton of cervical exams. I didn't want constant monitoring. Literally every single thing, I did the opposite. Like the lights were on. I think we dimmed them maybe, but like lights were on. I didn't listen to a thing. My sensory overload was insane. Like Daniel and my mom tried to rub me and I'm like smacking them away. I'm like, stop rubbing me. I really was feeling so much. Like I could feel that her head was like right there. It just felt like so much pressure. I was so uncomfortable. The contractions were coming like a minute apart. I definitely was like, I am not delivering on my back. I understand that. Then you're like working against I delivered on my back. I was fine with it. I did not care. I wanted to labor down. My plan was like, I know once I hit 10 centimeters, like that doesn't mean that I'm ready to push. I hit 10 centimeters. I'm like, I'm ready. I am ready to get this baby out of me. Like I didn't wait for the fetal ejection response, but I did wait for the sensation of like, I feel like I want to push. We're at 10 centimeters and at this point the doctor's not in there. So how they did it was once I guess like we hit 10 and then I communicated like, I want to push. I want to push now. Then the nurse pushes with me for a while, gets me to a point where then the doctor comes in and then we fully start like pushing again. The understanding was we're gonna do 3 rounds, deep inhale, push for 10, I think, breathe in and then push again, breathe in, push again. We probably spent 10 minutes of pushing with me and the nurse, which essentially equates to like 5 rounds of pushing because there was like, the contractions were a minute apart, so you have to wait in between the contractions. You push with the contractions. So like a contraction would come on, I would breathe in and then push, push, push. And basically they told me to like pretend like I'm, or like think I'm pooping. So like that's where I was pushing from. But I was also really, really grateful that the entire pregnancy I had been working on the breathing exercises to connect to my pelvic floor so that I knew like where in my body I needed to push. And then at this point I was also grateful that I had feeling and sensation because I could like feel where I needed to push from. I know some women like the epidural is so strong that they can't feel. So I was really grateful that I could feel even though it was painful. So I think it was like 10 minutes of pushing with the nurse and then the doctor came in and I pushed like twice. At this point, it's starting to really be uncomfortable and I didn't think I would want a mirror, but I told them to get me that mirror. And I was expecting like a handheld mirror or something small. No, they give you like, it's like a big rectangle and it's behind for me at least, it was behind the doctor. So I could like see everything. And that was pretty awesome because I saw her head. Like I can see her head, see all her hair. So I'm, you know, in purple pushing, holding, and the doctor even said, I love when I can tell like when the patient has been keeping up with their fitness because they're able to push. So that also was really reassuring and made me feel good that like all my effort during pregnancy was still making a difference, even though the labor was medicated and not exactly what I planned. And at one point I saw myself tearing through the mirror, like I could see it and I could feel it. Didn't care. The contractions were coming pretty fast once the doctor was actually there. But I probably pushed like 6 times and then the head came out. So I see it. I see my daughter's head out. And since we already knew that she was exposed to the meconium, the doctor, like the head comes out, her eyes are still closed, you know, she's not like screaming or anything yet because it's just the head. And she suctions out her nose and her throat. Then the next push was when she came totally out. So thankfully she was born, took a big inhale, she looked okay, they were able to put her on my chest, and we waited until the cord stopped pulsing. So I'm really, really grateful that I was able to do that. And that way it happened so much faster than I was expecting. Like so much faster. I thought it was gonna be like 30 minutes for some reason. I don't know why. It was like 2 minutes. So I had her on me. I think at that point, like she was still on me and I birthed the placenta. I looked at the placenta. I did choose not to take the placenta with me. And then they noticed that she was actually labored breathing. So then they took her away. They have, in the room, they had like a special little incubator thing and there were nurses there ready to like assist. So they took Celia over there and then a NICU nurse came in. She didn't inhale the meconium, but she did swallow it. So they had to pump her stomach. But I'm just in bed post-birth and she's over there. And at one point, like I made someone move so I could see and like I saw the liquid, like they were literally pumping her stomach and there was brown liquid. But then she was fine and she was stable and she had a great APGAR score and I don't know, like everything was fine. It was just like a brief moment of it being a little scary and her getting her stomach pumped, but then they were able to bring her back to me and we did skin on skin and my sisters came in and then she started crawling like, you know, I forget what it's called, like chest crawl or whatever, I don't know, but where she wanted to nurse because she was looking for that, and then she like immediately latched and it was so surreal. Like the first time, like once she was out, I was just sobbing. Like it was so beautiful. I had 2nd-degree tears and then I also had more tears and lesions, but there were some tears that we didn't sew up, but the 2nd degree they had to. But at this point, like I said, the epidural wasn't really effective anymore. So she had to give me lidocaine shots all over so that the stitches were less painful. But there were some spots where it was like still really spicy. So then she had to give me more shots. It was pretty gnarly, to be honest. It is what it is, but they were really bad tears. So we needed to stitch that up. One of the worst parts after delivery is that they press on your stomach to make sure that everything comes out or like is out. And I feel like nobody really told me to be prepared for that, but that's pretty uncomfy. The next day, this is full circle because remember I said epidurals like aren't supposed to hurt. So an anesthesiologist comes in and he's like, hey, I just like want to check in, see like if you were having a headache or anything because of what happened yesterday with the epidural. And I'm like, what happened? He's like, oh, like no one told me. And I'm actually happy they didn't tell me because I think I would have freaked out. He was like, well, yesterday, the first time the doctor put the epidural in, you actually started leaking spinal fluid. So then he had to do it again. So like the symptom is headache. So if you were having a headache, usually it comes in like the first 24 hours. But if you were having a headache, then we would have to redo the epidural to like clot it and close it. I had no idea. I was like, no, I'm good. I gotta wrap this up because that's a really unhappy baby. But yeah, so I think that's why it hurt so bad and that's why it felt like I was stuck 1,000 bajillion times because they had to do the epidural multiple times because I was leaking spinal fluid. But yeah, no headache. It was all okay. But that's my birth story. It didn't go at all how I planned, how I wanted it to go. I wanted it to be unmedicated, wanted it to be quiet. I wanted to hypnobirth. I wanted all these things, but I'm healthy and she's healthy and the epidural was pretty sick. Not gonna lie. Yeah, thank you for watching. And don't forget, like, subscribe because So much more is coming.